Wake up, John.
Hello. I'm reading. Sorry.
That's okay. It's season. Wow, we have a full crowd tonight.
Thank you.
You better not be driving, Shane.
I was just going to say, he's on his way home.
My son's soccer game out in Friday, actually.
Good evening. Today is Monday, October 5th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Welcome to the October Council Caucus meeting. This meeting has been duly noticed and is being held in accordance with Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22, specific to recent amendments made in light of the current COVID-19 declared emergency, House Bill 197, under the orders of Governor DeWine and the Director of Health of Ohio, and pursuant to Ordinance 2020-08, adopted March 16th, 2020. Council is meeting remotely via electronic means. No one is in the council chambers or able to access that space during the meeting. The public was invited to view the meeting live, assessing the meeting through a link posted on the Mayfield Village website at www.mayfieldvillage.com. Mayfield Village is conducting these proceedings in compliance with all applicable state laws and regulations. First up, we have the mayor's report.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to give everybody a little update and a little background on the status of our EMS agreement with Gates Mills. So our relationship with Gates Mills in terms of EMS services goes back to at least 1984. Back then, we had an informal arrangement with them. We gave them EMS services, and in turn, they provided our jail services and housed our prisoners. And somewhere along the line, they closed their jail, but we continued to provide EMS services. We had our first formal agreement for EMS services with Gates Mills in 2012. That was a 3-year agreement where Gates Mills began paying for ambulance and EMS services, and their cost at that time was $1,200 per run. In 2015, Mayfield Village and Gates Mills renewed their agreement. It was a 5-year renewal, and it extended through December of this year. This agreement provided for an annual maximum charge not to exceed $185,500 and a run charge of $1,325. And that equates to 140 runs per year, would get you up to the $185,500. We've noticed that Gates Mills began to regularly exceed the maximum of 140 runs per year. So in 2018, we entered into an addendum on the contract. And by that addendum, we were allowed to bill Gates Mills residents for ambulance services beyond 140 and keep that money. Prior to that, we still billed through Life Force billing for runs after 140 runs, but that money went to Gates Mills. So that was the change back in 2018. In the middle of this year, we began to negotiate with Gates Mills for a successor agreement. We have reached a tentative agreement, and this one would be for 3 years with 2 one-year options to renew. I don't want to go into all the terms yet since we don't have it finalized. The Gates Mills Law Director is currently reviewing that, and we'd like to have something to you before the next council meeting. If we had to push it to November, we could, but we're hoping to get an agreement to you before the council meeting this month. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Brodner. I'd like to say happy belated birthday to Tony Coyne. Tony's birthday was on October 2nd.
Thank you for not sharing the number.
You're welcome. The next regularly scheduled meeting of council is on Monday, October 19th at 7 p.m. The meeting will be held virtually. The agenda will be posted on the website for public view and comment. Next, we have Clerk of Council, Mrs. Betza.
Thank you, Council President. As reported earlier, Shred Day will go forward October 31st from 9 till noon. Call administration with any questions you might have. And then there are a number of organizations who are doing a great job hosting webinars so that we do not have to go directly to the webinars for our health and safety. House Bill 9 training is ongoing. The OML annual conference will be a webinar, and it's in November 9th through the 13th. And the Citizens League of Greater Cleveland rescheduled their Cuyahoga County Ethics, Fraud, Prevention, and Detection and State of Ohio Ethics Session for Friday, November 20th. That will be virtual as well. If you need further information on any of these, please let me know. In addition, just to let you know that the Regional Firefighter Paramedic exam will take place tomorrow at Beta Hotel. And I think there's probably almost 200 candidates. So we'll keep you posted on that. And then with regard to the Small Business Relief Fund Grant Awards, John Marquardt has prepared a memo and has asked me to pass it along. John says, thank you all once again for your support of the Small Business Relief Fund last month to help bolster our business community. To update council briefly, the response from our small enterprises has been very good thus far. As of Friday afternoon, October 2nd, 2020, we have received 14 applications totaling $32,500. leaving $17,500 still available for more applicants. 4 of these applicants submitted incomplete information, and I have been in conversation with each to clarify what is needed to become eligible. Per last month's discussion, it is my intention to convene the Mayfield Village Community Improvement Corporation meeting on Monday, October 19, 2020, to request approval of payment to all applications in this first group. Council approval would be sought immediately afterward, that same Monday night. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have and look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thank you. End of report.
Thank you, Mrs. Betza. Moving along to the building department, Mr. Morelli.
Yes, on your agenda tonight is the proposed patios in the front yard legislation. You may have noticed driving around town that there's furniture out in the front yards. People, I guess, have decided that they're don't like to isolate in the backyard anymore. So neighbors are kind of getting together and setting up patio furniture in the front yard. And it came to my attention when someone asked about the requirements for pouring a concrete pad in their front yards for their lawn furniture, that we didn't have any regulations. And so I was kind of scuffled for any good answer for that question. So I kind of came up with a off the cuff size and placement so that I could avoid having, concretes all over the front yards, helter skelter, wherever, they decided to put it. So I talked to the law department and they requested that I talk to the architectural review board, which I did. And we bantered about several different options. Everybody kind of settled on what you're looking at in Exhibit A on the legislation. And I just to try to explain what the fears were, my fears anyways, were that if and when this fad of putting furniture in the front yard passes, I didn't want to have parking lots in the front yard, because then, you could have the driveway with cars and you can have a patio with cars. So we put in some safety precautions of separations and barriers so that they won't end up being parked on in the future. I don't know what the future brings. I do know that some of the people I talked to said they felt more comfortable out in the front yard than in the backyard. I guess it's more of a community awareness kind of thing. And so architectural board went through their due diligence, and I put my 2 cents in, and then Tony and Katie put pen to paper, and what we have right now is the first blush of how a patio can be installed in a front yard legally. That's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Morelli. Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Morelli,
Yes, go ahead.
I'm just curious, have you gotten a lot of requests for patios in the front this past couple months, or?
I haven't gotten that many residents come to me and say, can I do it? But when I did, I had nothing to offer as far as rules.
Okay.
So, and I know even on your street, if you across the street, there's, patio set out in the front yard. A lot of residents had like extended driveways that came across the front of the house, and they would use, the part away from the garage and just set up tables and chairs.
Okay.
Which was fine. So, but that plays right into the way we wrote this.
Okay.
Because it allows them in the front yard, like up against the house.
Mm-hmm.
And it regulates the size so that they don't end up, covering the whole front yard with concrete.
Okay.
So it's been done tastefully so far, and so I guess I have the stop measure here if in case it gets out of hand. I could
Sure.
say, no, we have a rule and you have to stick within these parameters.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah,
Thank you.
not that many, not that many.
I have a question. What
Go
about
ahead.
the ones that already have the patios in the front yard?
That's a good question. What we're gonna do is grandfather those in. And so we're gonna have to do almost a door-to-door inventory and take photos and put them in the computer and they're gonna be grandfathered in because there was no rule up until the time this is passed, which it's not even passed now.
And is there any rule that you can't concrete your whole front yard right now?
I think between what the driveway rules are and this, that would prevent that.
At this point, though, before you pass this?
Not really.
Okay,
Another good reason for passing this.
Right.
Tonight, to
I'm
quickly.
saying, people are thinking, like our guy on Lander Road with the garage and the trucks that we keep.
Right, right.
See, that's my issue right there. I mean, the whole front yard's concrete now, and
Sure.
he sits out there with his lawn chairs and his buddies and his motorcycles, and you
Sure.
know my point. It's what
I
we're
get
gonna
it.
end up with.
Exactly why I want to go through with this so that I have something to point to and say, no, you can't do that. And here's why. Here's the rule.
Mhm.
John, what about play yards in the front yard on Thornapple? There's a resident that has a lot of plastic toys in the front yard and the people are asking me about that. What can we do about that?
You'd have to write legislation to regulate what you want or don't want to see in the front yard. That would be up to council to put something together about that.
Yeah, Councilwoman Mills, if they're toys and things of that nature, it's harder to regulate that because they're not fixtures, they're not improvements to the property that are permanent. So John's authority would be somewhat limited. There were trip hazards or they're getting on the sidewalk or the public way, that would be different.
Well, this front yard certainly has a lot, and over every weekend, it seems like another new structure goes up. So John, if you could take a look at that for me.
I could look at it, but I don't have any rule about
I know,
plastic
I
toys in
know,
the front yard. I
I
know.
know.
No. Like I said, people are coming out in the front yards. They're just tired of isolating in their house and in their backyards.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Borelli.
You're welcome.
Moving along to Finance Department, Mr. Nguyen.
Yeah, first item is appropriations legislation. In December of every year, we pass the legislation that finalizes the current year's budget for any adjustments that council approved during the year. And then also we pass a temporary budget for the first 3 months of next year. So that legislation will be on the October agenda in title only, so that it has 3 reads up until December when the actual numbers are presented and it's finalized. On the Life Force billing, Life Force is the company that handles our EMS billing for us. We entered into an agreement with them back in 2009. And in that agreement, there's a schedule where there's three different tiers of billing to insurance companies based upon the type of life support that's provided at the scene, whether it's basic or advanced 1. Those rates have not increased since 2009, and Life Force approached us and said that we should, and gave us a survey of what current municipalities are charging, and gave us some rates for consideration to increase as to what the billing, and these would just be billings to the insurance companies. So we're taking a look at that, and we're going to propose to go with Life Force recommendations for what that new rate structure would be. Also, at the same time, we're gathering information that we'll present to council for discussion. We are one of the few communities, if not the only community, that does not soft bill their residents for EMS services. And by soft bill, I mean We would just bill the insurance company of the individual for whatever the insurance company would pay for that type of service, and we would take that as payment from the insurance company, and that would be the end of it. So we think that there's a lot of revenue that's being left on the table by us currently not doing that for our residents. It was something that council was opposed to doing many years ago, but maybe things have changed. But we're going to gather information as to what we think that revenue impact might be for us, and present that to you for your consideration when we do renew the life force agreement. And one last item that's not on the agenda, just as an FYI, if you recall last year, the medical insurance for the employees, we made the decision to self-insure and go with a consortium, BORMA, the Buckeye Ohio Regional Municipal Association, consortium of 14 different municipalities. We did get our increase for 2021, and the increase came in at 4.49%. So it looks like making that decision to go with the self-insurance route with a larger group is definitely paying off from the standpoint of the price increase we're looking for for next year. So that's the end of my report.
Any questions? No questions. We'll move along. Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. Moving along to the law director report, Mr. Coyne.
Yeah, the only thing I had to report upon, it turns out to be sort of a non-issue. This had to do with the Georgia Medical Arts Building. They were refinancing. They were looking for a third-party opinion letter that their use was lawful under our code. And ironically, we found that the building was constructed through the application of a special use permit, and we couldn't confirm whether it was renewed or not. And we fortunately, through Diane Wogelmo's good work, found that there was a renewal. So it's in place, but it is subject to a special use permit renewal every 2 years. I don't know if that's something we want to look at some point in time, but that is in fact the case. But I thought we were going to have to potentially introduce a resolution to renew it, but we don't have to do that.
Any questions?
Is the original Georgian Center building under special use permit?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And as you know, the zoning change was to accommodate the potential medical office and surgery center with UH, but with COVID, I'm not sure that's going to happen, as expected, but we don't know that right now.
Now, are they going to have to apply for special use for the front?
For that, I believe they would, yes.
If they got it passed already, I mean, I don't believe I ever heard that come up in any of the conversations.
It's a medical, well, which part?
Okay. Well, the part about, when they went for the zoning change and, the buildings, I never heard anything about them having to apply for a special use permit.
It's a medical arts laboratory is the use, and they entered into willingly a development agreement. So that would be covered in that agreement.
Okay.
Any other questions?
That's all I got.
Next, we have Parks and Recreation, Mr. McAvenue.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to basically talk a little bit about the snowplow program. As of date, we have 222 people who have opted into the program. Later this month, we'll come to council for 3 agreements, one with Ameriscape, one with Arnold, and one with MJO. At this point, we're hoping that the numbers come up a little bit, because each of the groups are based upon lots of 30. So right now we have Ameriscape with 90 plus, Arnold with 90, and MJO with 30. If we don't make it to 60, MGO's price will go about $10 per driveway. So not a significant increase, but it will go up if we don't get to 60. We also will be putting in the purchase orders later this month, and I'll probably put them in not to exceed. So whatever the bottom line is towards next week, I'll add 10% on top of that. not to exceed. Also, they'll be taking the opt-out up through December, and that's $75 per resident who supplies the proper material to get reimbursed. So my first year doing the program hands-on, and got a pretty good handle on it. I'm pretty confident moving forward. Anybody have any questions?
So are you saying people can still apply or register?
Yes, people still comply. We're past the opt-in date, but we allow people to continue to register up through whenever. And the opt-out we do through the end of the year, and then we start at that particular point. But yes, we're still accepting both of them right now.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. McAvenue.
Thank you.
Moving along to the Service Department, Mr. Metzum.
Thank you, Council President. I have a few items tonight. The first one being the Euclid Creek Watershed. This is a group we've joined now since their inception. It's got to be over 20 years now for this group. Again, as my memo indicates, this is all for our phase 2 water quality issues that we belong to these groups, Euclid Creek and Chagrin River Watershed. For the $3,000 a year, and it runs through 2024. It's a pretty good bargain for us to be part of these groups as we move forward with when we have to be audited and things of that nature for the water, excuse me, for the Ohio EPA. The other item on the agenda is the sidewalk repair reimbursement. It looks like we're going to be codifying this now in an ordinance. This has been a policy that goes back many years now, where we reimburse residents for trees or for sidewalks that are damaged by tree roots. It originated back many, many years ago when looking for people to fix their sidewalks, and they have to do it over and over again, and they eventually would just rather have the tree removed than have to continue to replace their sidewalk. So in an effort to help alleviate some of that, we came up with this program to help pay for damaged sidewalks by tree roots. I canvassed the area of Aintree, and I found that about 20% of the sidewalk blocks up in that neighborhood needed some repair. Of that, 15% of it would be covered by this program. So you can see it's fairly significant part of the repair of the sidewalks in a neighborhood. So the only thing that we're looking to change, other than codifying it in an ordinance, is it's always been 8 blocks up to $1,000. It's $125 a block. And now we're going to make it, and that we are now changing it. So it's, if you live on a corner, you'll get twice as much because you have twice as much sidewalk to have to cover. So that's the only real change in the policy, other than we're going to put it in, excuse me, into an ordinance form. I have 2 other notes. One is the village has been awarded a tree grant that we applied for back in June with the Chagrin River Watershed Partners, and Frank Stupsky, our arborist, worked on together. We were part of 6 communities that moved forward with this grant application that we were awarded. It was a $215,000 total award, of which we're getting $67,000. And back in June, council did okay $14,000 towards this grant. It's an 80-20 grant. So we did get it. So we'll be planting, these trees are going to be planted in the Beach Hill. It was a holding tank area that is a 10-acre lot. The village got it about 25 years ago. The county gave us that property. You couldn't do anything with it. So now we're going to reforest it finally after all these years. So that's that. And then the last thing is leaf season starts in 2 weeks. It'll run through the middle of December or when weather chases us out. And we will stay out as long as there's leaves coming out, but we will not come back in the spring. So that's, the one caveat we always say, get them out, get them early so we can pick them up. If there are any questions on any of those items, please let me know.
If no questions, then we'll keep on moving along. Thank you, Mr. Metzung. Are there any other matters that come before council at this time?
Yes, Council President.
Go ahead, Councilman.
I would like to bring up the complaint that we received over the weekend from Mr. Mastrangelo in Wharton Park area about the deer problem. You may recall that at our first council meeting this year, I asked that we make deer a priority in 2020. And I also committed to look into what other communities are doing and provide an update back to council. COVID-19 kind of slowed me down to a degree, but Mr. Mastranello's complaint is bringing it to the forefront. I trust you had a chance to look at my note this morning about some of the things I've learned, what other communities are doing. One of the things I learned was that no one mentioned using their deer statistics as a way to determine if there was a deer problem. They're using head count. They are counting the deer as a way to determine if the number of deer in a particular area is safe and healthy for both the deer and the residents. I would like us to seriously consider or exploring doing a head count of the deer in Ward 4 of Mayfield Village.
I could add a little to that. I did some research with Highland Heights, and they did do a survey of the deer count per acre. And after they had come up with their deer count last year, they went in and they killed 40 deer, and it was like $10,000. But the way they did it, in Ward 4, I don't believe there's any safe spot where they could eliminate the deer, because it's, so congested with houses and people. I mean, there's no way, I don't believe that they could do it there. So it's got to be done a different way, I believe. Now this year, Highland Heights, they proposed to do 100 deer, and the cost is $40,000 for 100 deer. So it's, at this point, it's kind of up in the air. So how you do it, where you do it, and you got to be safe about it. The Metro Parks usually take care of our deer, but it's nowhere near Ward 4. So I don't know what we do. I mean, it's kind of a dilemma right now.
Well, that's been somewhat of a stumbling block in my thinking on this and talking to people. And that's why I'm not proposing that we cull deer at this point in time. I'm just proposing step one to determine if we should even consider it in the future by doing an accurate head count. Time will tell if it's impossible to do in Ward 4, but I would like to provide our residents with a more definitive answer about the deer problem in this area than just our police stats and the animal warden stats
Right.
don't justify.
George, do you know how many residents are in Ward 4?
Close to 95, if I remember correctly, 95 homes.
Okay. Do you know what percentage or how many people have you heard from over the years? Do you know?
If
If you had a
keep all-
ballpark.
I keep all the emails.
Okay, I was just curious if it was, maybe some of the same residents, or if it's different residents, if it's 10%, if it's, 25%, that's has voiced their concern.
Different residents. This is the
Okay.
first time we've heard from Mr. Mastronicello. I haven't included myself in this list.
Okay.
I started to take pictures of what they did to my yard recently over this summer. But it's just been consistent, maybe persistent is the word,
Okay.
since I've been involved.
Okay.
And it's become a topic at our quarterly meetings that we used to have.
Mhm.
Then Councilman Williams, do we have a guesstimate on how many deers we think are acceptable, like per acre? Like if we do a head count? Did any of the communities that you spoke with, did they mention what they go with as rule of thumb?
There is a formula,
Okay.
and I can pass that on. I'm sorry, I just don't have it in front of me.
Sure, yeah, I'd just be curious and seeing how many, on what other communities feel is acceptable.
Well, it's based on population and size of the community.
Okay,
It's not so much the community itself making the decision. It's the state and Department of Agriculture, as I understand it.
okay. Yeah, if you can just pass along whatever information you have.
All right. I know we're not trying to bring this to a vote tonight, but I wanted to initiate a conversation
Sure.
and continue having discussions with the administration about this. Diane has been very helpful in sharing information that she's learned as well.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's another way to look at it because we haven't looked at it in this regard, like you mentioned.
If there are no other questions, that's it for now. But hopefully you'll be hearing more in the very near future.
Sounds good. Okay, if we're done with the deer conversation, is there anything else, that any other matters that come before council? Okay, thank you everybody for your time. I appreciate it. We are concluded, 7:33 p.m.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night, thank you.
Night.
Thank you.
See ya.